So we have joining us today, Anna Song Kazano. She was our scholarship winner back in 1995. She is an Emmy and Murrow Award winning journalist, and an Emmy nominee, and she currently hosts. She created a show, so she's a host and creator at That Expert Show in partnership with the Oregonian. So Google Expert Show, and you could find out more about what Anna covers in her show. And we also have Dr. Lori Tam, medical doctor, who is also medical director and at the Providence Women's Heart Program, a cardiologist at the Providence Heart Institute. And we're so glad that she's taking time out of her busy day to join us. She's joining us from some work today. And then Jenny Shen, you already met her. It was our 2014 scholarship recipient, as well as alum from the AAYLC. And then Justin Kwong, he is currently a project engineer at Hoffman Construction and a scholarship recipient from 2015. And then Kai Nelson, he is our most recent recipient and also an alum from AAYLC. He is headed to Cal Poly State University at San Luis Obispo this fall. So now let's go ahead and begin our panel presentation. Joining us to start off with our first question is Dr. Lori Tam. Let's see if we could find Lori in the room, and then we could spotlight her. That would be great. There she is. Hi, Lori. And while Lori is going to answer our first question, we're going to ask Ray to be sure to get Kai set up as well. So Kai will be following Lori. Dr. Tam, so glad you could join us. Could you share with us about your experiences with the Portland Law Center?
Oh, well, Helen, thank you for having me today. So I will warn you, I am on call. So if things get busy, or if I get an emergency call, I may have to excuse myself for a little bit, but we'll try to stick with this for the entire duration of the program. So I was the scholarship runner, one of the scholarship winners of the Fred G. Lee Scholarship back in 1999, so 22 years ago as a high schooler. But even prior to that, I participated in the National CACA Essay Contest. And I recall maybe I was a junior in high school, but I was the first place winner, and I think my younger sister was the second place winner that year. So our involvement in CACA dates back many years. But I really became interested, learned about CACA really at that time because I needed scholarship support. I knew if I was going to go to college, and my parents are first generation Chinese immigrants. They were refugees from China, and I was born here right after they arrived in the U.S. So I knew in my mind back then that in order to be educated and to go to college, I needed to apply for scholarships. So I started doing that very early, even back to freshman year of high school. I would start applying, and I came across the CACA programs, and I think it's just wonderful that all the support I've gotten all through the years. So the Fred G. Lee Scholarship provided me with $1,000 scholarship through all 4 years of my college education, and that was able to supplement what I needed to finish. I graduated from Cornell and the College of Arts and Sciences as a biology major, and then subsequently went to medical school and trained at Oregon. I had a scholarship at Oregon Health and Sciences University. So I came back from medical school here and then did my my internal medicine residency at Brigham and Women's Hospital at Harvard, and then my cardiology fellowship at Johns Hopkins, and came back and have been practicing here in Portland for almost 10 years now. This is where my family is, in my hometown. But I will say that if it was not for the scholarship support of programs like the scholarships from CACA, I really wouldn't be able to do the things that I do now. And my family and I are very grateful for that, for you believing in me, over 20 years ago. But I also subsequently won the Walter Lum Scholarship, which is through National CACA, I think a year or two after that, and grateful for that support as well. And as part of the Fred G. Lee Scholarship, I had support to go and attend the national conference that year. I think it was in New Mexico. And I will say that it was quite amazing. I think as an Asian girl growing up in Portland, Oregon, I'd never seen that many Asian people in one place. And certainly not so many Asian people that were so engaged in terms of civic leadership and social issues and political things. I think, as a first generation Asian immigrant in a first generation Asian immigrant family, our parents were working so hard just to make ends meet, pay the rent and put food on the table. That leadership, community service, these things were never things that they even had time to think about. And I'm grateful that I had that exposure through CAC amongst the many other organizations that have been supported by throughout the years.
Thank you so much, and we'll hear more from you. Now let's hear from Kai about his experience with the Portland Lodge.
Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, my experiences with the Portland Lodge has mostly been through volunteering with one of their programs, specifically the Asian American Youth Leadership Conference, otherwise known as AAYLC. Now, this conference is amazing. I've been involved for 3 years now. The first year, I was a student ambassador for my high school. I worked alongside other student ambassadors to promote the conference and its mission. At my own high school, I was responsible for some logistics, such as how students get to and from the conference. And at the conference itself, I was a co-facilitator for one of the workshops. Now, the last 2 years that I've been involved in AAYLC has been through being on the school outreach team and social media team. On the school outreach team, I worked and coordinated with administrators from high schools in Oregon and Southwest Washington about their involvement in the conference. And on the social media team, I worked with a team of students to design and post about the conference on social media platforms. I've also been involved in the scholarship program through the Portland Lodge, specifically the Fred G. Lee Scholarship. So I applied, interviewed, and happened to win one of the scholarships that they offer. Now, these scholarships are truly a great resource for us Asian American students, and I really feel honored and beyond grateful to have the CACA supporting me in my future academic endeavors. So yes, very thankful for that.
So we're so thankful that Kai was able to make that pre credit segment for us. And now let's listen to Jenny. Jenny, please let us know about your own experience with the Portland Lodge. Ray, if you would mind spotlighting Jenny.
Hi, everyone. As you probably have noticed, my name is Jenny Shin. I am currently the board secretary for the Portland Lodge. And my first exposure to the Portland Lodge programs was actually also through the Asian American Youth Leadership Conference. I was introduced to that program back in 2012, actually, when I just participated as an attendee. And then later on in 2014, actually noticed that they actually have a special student ambassador program, which gives students to take on more of a leadership role as part of the planning team. So I applied and I was fortunate enough to be selected as the representative for my school. And through that experience, it really gave me just exposure and reassurance that there is a community built for young Asian Americans here in Portland. Growing up, I kind of lived predominantly in very white suburban Portland. And my brother and I were actually, one of few Asian Americans enrolled in our school. So growing up, it kind of felt like quite an isolating experience, being kind of the only Asian in the room. And, you're always met with these discriminatory comments such as like, oh, if you're in math class, like, oh, like you must be really smart, or like you must be really good at math just because you're Asian. But it was comforting to be part of the Asian American Youth Leadership Conference, to actually know that, those struggles, I didn't experience that alone, that there were also peers like me that had similar experiences. And through that conference, we were able to be in dialogue with one another and converse about, just some of these topics um, and events that would occur on a daily basis at school. And I was also fortunate enough to be a scholarship recipient. I was a recipient for the Paul Duan Memorial Scholarship in 2014, which really helped in terms of paying for my tuition as I was enrolled in the Honors College at the University of Oregon. So that really supported me, as sometimes scholarships are hard to come by, and me being not the best standardized test takers, I kind of had to look outside the box in terms of what kind of other local scholarships I could allocate. So through that, I was engaged with the Portland Lodge. And then after graduating from college in 2019, I was like looking for volunteer programs to commit to, and I found that AAYLC was actually recruiting for more planning team members. So I kind of jumped on board, and it kind of came full circle as I once started as a participant and attendee, and now one of the leading planning team members. And from that, I was introduced by Helen to be part of the board for the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, that have been doing really fulfilling and meaning work there since.
Thank you so much, Jenny. We're so glad to have you on our team. And we now want to listen to hear from another panelist, Justin.
I grew up with a stepfather who was directly on the CACA board himself, Randy Choi, and I got a chance to meet a lot of others who were, one, advocating for bills, two, getting a chance to really stay involved with the youth and those in the community, the Chinese American community, or those who were just providing volunteer programs to seniors and helping those directly. So I got to attend some of these board dinners with other CACA Lodge members, and not only got a chance to meet them, but ultimately kind of become some of their friends. I found that was really great exposure in figuring out who I am and how I kind of fit into the overall picture of being Chinese American. And it was some of their exposure experiences, their personalities, that helped make up who I am today. So I'd say my experience with the Lodge, one, through being scholarship programs, two, being through education and academia, and three, being just direct involvement with the boards and some of the activities they are doing, have really helped contribute to some memories of me growing up and getting educated through high school, as well as even being a younger kid in middle school, kind of first getting involved with a lot of what was happening. It's been really amazing to see the development over the course of the last few years, and I have full intention to continue to be involved in any way I can.
Thank you, Justin. And again, listening to, Dr. Tam, Jenny, and Justin and Kai, we get a different flavor of what you had experienced and how Portland Lodge has, and the work of the community members have helped and impacted you. So can you, at this point, share just, maybe some other highlights that you haven't touched on, and other stories about how, being a part of CACA and Portland Lodge has helped you? Jenny, you're going to kick us off.
Yeah, so there were actually many highlights as part of, the CACA family. I think the most important one growing up was enrolling in the student ambassador program. So at the school level, the local school level, there wasn't really much of an Asian and Chinese American presence at school. We didn't even have enough membership to create an Asian an Asian club at school. So, the idea of, being enrolled in the student ambassador program through the Asian American Youth Leadership Conference was just a really great and fulfilling process. And through there, I was really able to meet a lot of lifelong friends, many of whom actually enrolled at the University of Oregon with me. So that was really nice to see that moving into college, that I kind of already have created some solid friendships going in, being that I was one of few students from my school that was enrolled at the university. And I would say that most of the friends that I've met through the student ambassador program remains to be friends, some of my closest friends today, and if not colleagues, moving forward as well. And I guess on the board level, being the board secretary, some of the highlights have really just been kind of doing the background work and noticing all of the meaningful programs that are offered through the CACA. I've had the pleasure of facilitating 2 of our veterans recognition program, and that has been a very meaningful experience, just knowing that those celebrations and recognitions have really been long overdue, and just to see all the smiles and gratefulness of the families that are attending those programs really brings warmth into my heart, and knowing that these programs really do create a long-lasting effect and also positive environment to our Chinese American community. So I would say those 2 would probably be my biggest highlights as part of the CACA Portland Lodge.
Thank you, Jenny. And it is really, just so heartwarming to hear how you've been how things have benefited you. And let's now take a moment and hear from Justin.
At the end of my high school education, I got a chance to receive a CACA scholarship. And we went to a dinner with my family, some direct board members that were involved, and other students who were in the same boat as me. Now, the scholarship itself, it really wasn't about the money for me. It was more so about the acknowledgement you receive from both the Chinese American community, other students, my peers, as well as my family who attended this event, that really shows that other people care about your future. When you have those that are directly involved with your culture, and family from which you've watched you grow up, show that they really are excited to see you succeed. They think you're going to be successful. That can change someone's projected overall their outcome of their finalized college years and ultimately their professional career. So that experience with me really helped kind of propel me forward to understand both what the CACA meant to me, what my Chinese American community means to me, and what my family means to me. Another great story is kind of a follow-up to add to that. The CACA invited me back to speak at a scholarship dinner, the exact same one that I was awarded that scholarship with in high school, but this time as an alumni, as a sophomore in college. So not only was I nervous and had a hard time dealing with all the pressure from speaking in front of other people, but it also was closing the circle, kind of conveying that you ultimately receive this reward in essence to succeed with your academia, and then you can come back and present that to other people, and to see that same feeling in other people's eyes is quite rewarding and very fulfilling to yourself, because you are essentially closing the gap and providing to the next generation. So it's these experiences, and maybe even a combination of other items that CACA is involved with, i.e. maybe it's the yearly Chinese New Year Festival at the Convention Center, their involvement with the Chinese Garden, or their involvement with some community basketball programs. It's the combination of these different events that CACA holds that provide memories and essentially a foundation for Chinese Americans who are kind of growing up, and they'll remember those for the rest of their lives. I think is a really important portion. I think that ultimately, if we didn't have some of these programs and events, it would leave a gap for some people who are growing up in both my generation and the next. So it's really important that we continue to provide these events and give kids these outlets to make memories, but also to give back to those that are kind of growing up beside them, and then those that are kind of going through the generations under them. So really appreciative that there was a chance for CAC to offer events like that, and also scholarships to really help students succeed.
Thank you to Justin. And it's very clear that what he said is about programs, but more than that, it's really relationships, right? And then the other part about is paying it forward. And I think Dr. Tam will also share some highlights at this point, and maybe you'll share about how you're paying it forward.
Well, I would love to. So, the scholarship support was really important to me. My parents, my dad was a cook in a Chinese restaurant. My mom was a cleaning lady. So they don't speak any English, never did, not really much. And so for me, the whole ability for me to be, to be where I am today really was dependent on all the other support I've gotten through scholarships and mentorships. And I will say that, being part of the CACA community, I could see that there was, mentorship that I wouldn't have had otherwise. As I said, I was able to have support to go to the national convention as a high school senior after I won the Fred J. Lee Scholarship that year. And it really opened my eyes out to a much bigger world. My parents would never have been able to expose me to any of those things. Being political isn't really an Asian trait, especially not for the first generation immigrant community. And, they just needed to provide a living and to raise their family. So I think civic leadership, community engagement really wasn't anything that was on their radar. And I would never have had that exposure had I not been able to be a part of the programs that CACA offered. I think with that, I think it really instilled confidence and also showed me that they're the things that I could be someday, the things that I could do and aspire to. And being, confident and assertive is a good thing. And but I wouldn't have known that, I think, as a teenager if I hadn't had this kind of exposure. So, so I would say for me, the support, both for the programs, the relationships, and also the financial support really to get me through school was very important. I, over the course of my college and higher education, I applied for a lot of scholarships, and at the end of the day, I think collected about $150,000 to $200,000 in scholarships that made my Ivy League education possible. So, which meant a lot of essays, a lot of interviews, and a lot of work. But I think that was what I knew that was what I needed to do to get to where I needed to be and where I knew I could be. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. My family is extremely grateful. And I just talked to Helen this last week recently about, in honor of the centennial, and also in honor of all the support I've gotten through CACA, I will be establishing a scholarship in my parents' names, Sheng Mo and Fing Tam scholarship through the Portland CACA Lodge, where we will be, I would love to be able to support the next generation forward, because it's very important for me to be able to pay this forward. To be able to. I think if it was any other place in the world other than being here in the U.S., I don't think I would be able to interject.
Oh, you're muted, Laurie. You're muted. You're muted. Oh, Laurie, you're muted.
There we go. All right. I got a page, and my pager goes to my phone, so it gets muted, I think, automatically. But I was saying that, so I think if it was anywhere else in the world, I'm not sure that this could have happened, that in a span of, a generation, that our lives for my family has changed so much. And, 22 years ago, I was a high schooler receiving a scholarship, and now I'm grateful to be an Ivy League educated cardiologist and be able to pay it forward. So I'm just extremely grateful to have this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing what the next generation can do.
Yeah, Laurie. So we're just so delighted and so grateful to have you coming back, not only to have given to the scholarship program for so many years, and you've been speakers at our programs and a role model for our youth. And now that you're going to actually establish a scholarship in your parents' name through the Portland Lodge, we're just so glad you've chosen us to do that. And thank you so much. And I don't know if the Portland Lodge knows, but Lori just signed up to be a member of the Portland Lodge. So we want to welcome you as our newest member to the Portland Lodge.
Oh,
and now
yeah.
So we're going to take a moment now and switch over to listen to Kai, to hear from Kai.
Well, of course, one of the major highlights, winning a scholarship, truly amazing. And I mean, besides that financial support from the CACA, which, as I said, I am so thankful for, especially with how expensive college is nowadays. There are definitely several other ways that my affiliation with the CACA has been helpful. I think off the top of my head, I just think about AAYLC again, because it is such an amazing conference. It provided me a community to make new friends, take a leadership role, and establish my own voice. And this was so important for me personally, coming into high school, because at that time I was feeling confused because I think I lacked a sense of identity, and I really wanted to discover my Asian roots and find a supportive community that could help me do that. And I found that through the Asian American Youth Leadership Conference. More specifically, through AAYLC, I truly enjoyed spending time and getting to meet, work, and establish lasting relationships with all these people that have similar ambitions as goals as I do at the trainings. And that was really one of the highlights for me, is getting to know all these new people at facilitator and student ambassador trainings.
Thank you to Kai. And now we're going to just keep this conversation going with our next question. And you may have already touched on it, Jenny and Lori. But I would like to just go ahead and ask it anyways. And if you have anything else to add to it, would love to have you add to that. The question is, why do you think it's important for the Chinese American Citizens Alliance to invest in youth programs, as well as leadership development and civic engagement activities? So, and then also give us suggestions how that can be done. And Dr. Tam, you go first.
Well, I think I've already, touched on this, but I would say I think the mentorship is very important. I think having role models in areas that you're not necessarily that familiar with, and also seeing Asian individuals, people that look like you, have similar backgrounds in leadership positions, right? Because I think that you can only aspire to be what you know exists. And I think that for me growing up, many of these things I didn't know existed, and all these things that I've subsequently been able to do was because I've had incredible support behind me. I've had mentorship. I've had incredible educators that have helped get me to where I am. So I think that that kind of exposure really instills people to be able to, young people, to be able to broaden their horizons and to dream, bigger dreams that they didn't even know existed. And I think with all of those activities really instilled with me a confidence, by the time that I was in college and, beyond in medical school, training and residency fellowship, at that point I was confident because I'd had so many opportunities over the years to really test that and to develop those skills that are important. And sometimes they're soft skills. They're not always just the ability to score an 800 on each section of the SAT. It really is, being able to be confident, to be able to articulate, to be able to communicate, and to also be able to think critically on your feet and, problem solve. I think all of those things we evolve with the things that are experiences. And I think giving young people the opportunity to be active and to learn these skills early really kind of adds to a much richer life and achievements down the road. So I think for me, I think we all know it's important to invest in our youth and in our future. Many of us have been able to cultivate the skills that we have now because we've had exposure and opportunities like that in the years past. So that's why I've been incredibly grateful to CACA and all these years, because I really feel like civic organizations like this one is critical to kind of expanding the opportunities for our youth for many generations to come.
Thank you, Lori. So well put. Really, really appreciate it. So to follow you, Justin has something to say about that too.
The reason why I am such a advocate of this one is because we ultimately go on to learn, through this education program, hopefully to get professional experience and spread that knowledge to the next generation. So helping other people who maybe are on a different path than you or on the journey to kind of growing up and figuring out who they are is really the roots of what we're able to become and how we're ultimately able to succeed. In my opinion, the direct involvement with some of these youth programs and civic activities allow us to kind of build that foundation for a new generation to understand, again, the whole process of figuring out where they're from and what their family's culture means to them and how that relevance is integrated into their lives. So starting really at the core level of education, I'd say getting directly involved with any volunteer programs that maybe work with students, educating them about Chinese culture directly, finding a way to maybe introduce a curriculum of some sorts to the public school program, I think would be a great way to, kind of introduce people to the history of Chinese Americans and how we were directly involved with the whole immigration process all the way up until, modern day society. To share a quick backstory, my father, he was an immigrant from Hong Kong. So that whole process of coming to the U.S., not staying an alien, but becoming a United States citizen, and actually going through the academia program that's put forth for you, I think that's something that isn't talked about nearly enough in education. We talk about history of the Americas, these IB and AP classes that integrate all of these really important aspects of where we came from, but it's very, very rare that we ever touch on Japanese Americans or Chinese Americans. So I think just finding a way to engage in that public education piece will really help propel people to get interested about their culture, where they're from, and ultimately finding a way to integrate that into their professional lives as they grow older so that they remember to give back, I think is the really important part about getting down to the younger generations.
Thank you so much too, Justin. It's almost like you read our minds, right? Because we have several resolutions on what he is emphasizing on. And Jenny, do you have more to add to, why it's so important, why it is important, and how can we do that?
Yeah, so I think everyone really touched on really the major points. And I also echo with Lori in terms of how just the Chinese American Citizens Alliance and its programs have really instilled greater confidence among the youth that they serve throughout the programs. I know when I first immigrated here from Taiwan, English was a completely new language. I had to learn it from scratch. So that ultimately resulted in me becoming a very shy and timid person growing up. And never would I have imagined that today, now I'd be like in the leadership sector, helping facilitate meetings and talking at public events. I never really realized that I had that voice in me to be able to have that capability to do that. And I think through the youth programs that really developed how I see myself and how I would like to lead in the future. And I think, that's really powerful because growing up, I think we all had parents that, were really trying their best and, were working the 9 to 5 just to provide for their family. And that certainly was the case for both my mom and dad. And, there was really little mentorship that could that they could provide in terms of the education front, seeing that, they were also struggling with English themselves. So therefore, I kind of had to really be self-sufficient and rely on myself. But later on, knowing that, you can't always pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, that you really do need that community support and mentorship. And that is exactly what I found through the CACA, not only within the board members and also the leadership team, but also through the AAYLC conference, and seeing that, there's peers like me, and also like Lori, who is now a doctor. It's really inspiring youths all across the nation that, they have the capacity and also the supportive community to really reach for their dreams and actually actualize a future that, is brighter and really diverse. And we really see that. I see that personally through the students that we see at the Asian Youth Leadership Conference now, that we're really seeing more enrollment and also greater motivation for the youth to really want to speak up and also advocate for themselves, which I probably would not have, seen while I was a student. So I think it really plays a role in terms of just inspiring the youth of today and turning into leaders like everyone here on this panel and also in attendance.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And I'm going to go ahead and just ask Kai to chime in.
I think it is so important for the Chinese American Citizens Alliance to invest in these youth programs, as well as leadership development and civic engagement activities, because it's really these programs and activities that are shaping and producing the leaders in our community today. I think, for example, many of the amazing people that I've met through CACA are adults that were involved in some sort of youth CACA program years ago, and they are still continuing to give back, volunteer, and just do great things in the community. Aside from that, as someone who's participated in these programs and activities firsthand, I can tell you that the people that are putting these together are doing just outstanding work. They are so passionate and genuine about what they're doing, and I really admire that. As far as suggestions for how this can be done more than it already is, I think the CACA can increase involvement by getting in contact with all the local high schools and advertising more volunteering opportunities that will benefit the API community to the Asian American high school student population. As well as advertising the programs that are already in place.
So we have, some suggestions for all of us to consider, or, there's a lot more that can be done and needs to be done. And so we're going to kind of wrap up with the last question for this session, is to ask our panelists to see if they have other thoughts they would like to share with us. And now I'm going to bring Anna into the room so that she could share with you her own experience with CACA Portland, as well as suggestions for us.
Hi there, my name is Anna Canzano. Thank you so much for this chance to talk about the CACA Portland Lodge and what it has meant to me over the years. I am so grateful for the support that CACA Portland has offered me since I was in high school, frankly. I was applying for colleges and wasn't sure how I was going to pay for them. I had worked really hard as a student and engaged in leadership activities, but still facing at the university that I wanted to attend, Pepperdine, a $50,000 a year tuition, room and board plus expenses payment. And I know for a fact that the support that I received from the CACA propelled me toward that opportunity to go to Pepperdine. I did receive an academic scholarship to go there, but there were a lot of expenses that simply weren't covered by that. And so to have that financial support and that boost from people here in the community who understood and saw me and were recognizing how hard I was working toward, a life of success really meant the world to me. Aside from just the financial support, which certainly was beneficial and helpful, it was this feeling that folks like Betty Jean Lee, for example, were behind me. That these people, saw who I was and basically were saying, we believe in you, we want to support you, and we're here for you. And I can't tell you, I can tell you now that I'm an adult and I can look back and I can reflect on what that meant. I don't think I even realized the full gravity of how important that support was at the time. I was raised by a single mom. I immigrated with my family here to Taiwan when I was from Taiwan when I was just 2 years old. And so I also didn't have a lot of relatives who lived in the area. So to be around people who understood my heritage, looked like me, spoke my language, and on top of that, wanted to support me in going to the college that I hoped to attend, really was very impactful to my life at that stage. I think that CACA should continue to nationally support programs that empower young students to take on leadership roles and to engage in the community. One of the things that I'll always appreciate was the opportunity to go to San Francisco and visit the CACA in San Francisco and meet other kids like myself from across the country. I know that coming from Portland, which has a tiny little Chinatown, and going to the Chinatown in San Francisco for the first time, walking down the street with other high school students who looked like me and were raised similarly to me, had a lot in common with, was an experience that I will never forget. I loved it so much, and I'll always be grateful for that. I think it's particularly important that CACA continue to support youth enrichment programs and propel the youth of tomorrow, or the future, actually, the youth of today, and the hope for tomorrow, to engage in community activities, because I think in the culture, I think we do a great job of focusing and supporting our families, but I don't always see a community-wide notion of support. I think we do a great job of being families and supporting those that we're connected with by blood and through marriage and whatnot. But I would love to continue to see CACA foster this idea among young people that there is so much beyond, the confines of your home. You're part of this interwoven knit in your community, and you have the opportunity to bring whatever skills you have to the table and take on leadership roles and be visible and advocate for issues that you believe in. I really believe that this is an important next step for CACA to continue and to build as we look to nurture and develop the leaders of tomorrow. And I can't express that enough. I appreciate so much the mentality that CACA gave me to believe in community, to work for others and be a servant leader and help others in succeeding themselves. I think it's very much what inspired me to found a nonprofit with my husband called the Bald Faced Truth Foundation, which helps inspire joy in kids in the Oregon and Southwest Washington area, in the areas of the arts and academics and athletics, because we know now all those things cost money and not every family can afford those things. So we help grant scholarships essentially to students who want to participate and get help in those kind of activities, which can be so enriching. So thank you again, CACA, for the support that you've given me over the years. I know now how much it meant to my life, both spiritually and professionally and personally. I appreciate the mentorship that I was given and the confidence that I was given that I could go on and pursue my career in broadcast journalism as I have. So I wish you all well, and again, thank you for this privilege to speak.
So thank you so much to Anna, and she speaks volumes in what she's not only saying in words but in deeds. They founded this Bald-Faced Truth Foundation, and if you want to learn more about it, Google it, and I'm sure you'll be delighted to see what they're doing. And there's a great shout out really to not only the Portland Lodge, but you heard the Chinese American Citizens Alliance National mentioned several times in our youth panel, talking about how it has helped them. So I am going to wrap this up and ask Lori and Jenny if they have any more thoughts. We're running a little bit over into your break time, but Jenny, Lori, do you either of you have more thoughts to share before we wrap up?
Well, I will say I will echo Anna's sentiment that it's really powerful to feel that we have a community behind us. And I know that growing up in my participation in CAC, I really felt I had a community behind me. So you, Helen, were instrumental, Betty Jean Lee as well. People that I really felt like I knew was supporting me all along the way. So thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Tam. Jenny, do you have any last words you'd like to share with our participants?
Yeah, I would also echo that the meaningful support that is provided by the CAC really speaks volume. I, for myself, my parents actually have returned back to Taiwan to help take care of my grandparents. So seeing that I am now here alone with just my older brother, that the mentorship and also the community support offered by the board and also just from the membership is really reassuring, especially now in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, where, we're really finding greater comfort in just, being together and having this community that is willing to serve and provide for one another. And, I'm forever thankful for all of the opportunities and also now this position with the CACA. And I can also only look forward to all the amazing things that's to come.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank you again, Dr. Tam. And I just wanted, say that we hope that this not only highlight the work of the Portland Lodge, but we also want to say that for the Chinese American Citizens Alliance lodges all across the country, I hope that we're all inspired by their words, by the panelists' words, how important it is for us to invest in our youth, to invest in building leadership, and getting everyone involved in a civic way. So now as we wrap up, let's give all panelists a big applause. Thank you, thank you. And I just want to ask Gloria, do you have anything to say